Hello everyone and welcome to Trade Picker. All right, so what do we have in store today? First, we're going to discuss three potential trade setups for next week. Then we're going to talk about the Nifty and Bank Nifty and what are our expectations from both of these for next week. So please stay tuned. Okay, now let's talk about trade number one. For trade number one, we have Grasim Industries. So what is the trade idea? First, I'll talk about the trade idea. So the trade idea is to go long Grasim once it breaks the 730 area. So once it breaks 730, we're looking to go long. Now let's talk about the trade logic. Okay. Now let's see Grasim's chart right from March. What has happened? So we had one breakout in May. Look at the kind of breakout we had. So it broke out, it tested that region again. It had some kind of a choppy action. It tested that region for the second time, and it had a second breakout with good volume, and it's always stayed above where it's broken out from. So here we see it stayed above where it's broken out from, and again it stayed above where it's broken out from. So this is a great sign of a trend, and this has happened for two times. Now we're looking to go long again. We see sort of consolidation here. There's medium to high volume, and we're seeing a good support on its previous resistance. So this is a previous resistance, and we are seeing good support. What does that mean? It means that wherever it has broken out earlier, it is sort of waiting there. It is not going below it. This means that the buyers who took a trade above the resistance line, the buyers who took a trade above this line are not letting it go below. They are not letting it go below. So we're looking to go long. Once it breaks this entire consolidation, we're looking for another breakout trade. This breakout trade might not yield as much as the previous trades because it's given quite a good move in the last 4 or 5 months. It's moved pretty much from 400 to 730. So, just a few more percentage, and we're looking at 100% return from March. So this might not give as good as a breakout as the previous ones, but nevertheless, there is a trade in this. All right. Now let's talk about trade number two. So for trade number two, we are the heavyweight, HDFC. So HDFC, right since it sold off late February and early March, it sort of moved in a horizontal line. It's had a decent range from 1500 to 2000, but this is not even comparable when we look at the Nifty. The Nifty has almost made up for all its loss gains. So HDFC has sort of just moved in a diagonal line. So whenever we see, such sort of an action, when we see something move lower and then move horizontally for a long time, there is a possibility that it moves back lower again. So right now we're seeing in HDFC, we see a rejection every time it goes higher. So we see one rejection here, we see another rejection here, we see another rejection here, and a similar rejection here with good candle. Okay, so with a good candle, we're seeing rejection of all these areas. So I'll just delete this and I'll try to highlight this again. So every time it's trying to go higher, it just gets sold off. Now we're seeing sort of a tight support region near 1720. We see it's tested it a few times, and this is what is very, very interesting. For the last week or so, when Nifty was so volatile, HDFC has sort of traded in a very tight range. So the break of this range will yield a good move. So we're looking to go short. Why? Because this tight range has preceded, which means before this tight range, there was a sell-off. So we're looking at continuation for that sell-off. So before this tight range, there was a sell-off, and we're looking for continuation for the sell-off. So our trade idea again for HDFC is to go short below 1730 and we're looking at targets as low as the year lows. So let's see how this trade pans out. It's a really good trade, and everyone should have an eye for it. Okay, this was trade number 2. Now let's talk about trade number 3. So for trade number 3, we have L&T. It has some sort of a similar setup to HDFC. So again, we see a very similar price rejection here. We see it trying to go high, failing. Again, it's broken the highs by a little bit and it's failed. And again, it's broken the highs by a little bit and it's failed. So every time it tries to move higher, it gets sold off. Every time it's trying to go higher, it is getting sold off. Now we're seeing a very good support at 890. We're seeing that there's a lot of support at 890, 895. I'm just going to highlight this. So every time it's come near this region, it's sort of bounced back higher. But this time, we're not seeing that kind of a bounce. We're not seeing that kind of a bounce. It's following through from a large sell-off previously. So just like HDFC Bank, we've had a sell-off. We have had this kind of a sell-off, and then it's simply moved sideways. So our expectation is once it breaks the low, once it breaks this low, we want to take a short position. Okay, I'll just clear out this chart and I'll explain it again. So once it breaks this, let me redraw that. Once it breaks this low, we're looking to go short. It's sold off and it's moved sort of horizontally with all these price rejections. So this is a great trade. This is something everyone should have on their radar. Okay, so these were the 3 trades. Now let's just talk about what we think about the Nifty and Bank Nifty in general. So let's switch to those charts. Okay, so now we're looking at the Nifty chart. So what did we see last week? Last week we saw, reasonable price action. We had a sell-off. I personally expected that sell-off would continue, but it did not happen. And then after that, we saw pretty much flat price action. So if I switch to the weekly chart, we see that, let me just switch to the weekly chart quickly. If we switch to the weekly chart, we see that Nifty has had sort of a nothing week. It's put in a hammer doji. It's put in this doji. This is usually a bullish sign, a hammer doji like this. But I'm not going to take this doji very seriously. Let me explain why. So moving back to the daily chart, we see it's sold off and it's sort of taken a pause here. So as long as we do not see Nifty break sort of a previous pivot or a previous resistance, it will remain bearish. So as long as Nifty remains below 11,600, it remains bearish. And one more interesting thing to see is, so it had this breakout late on Thursday. So it had this breakout late on Thursday, and we did not see any sort of a continuation. There was no continuation. All it did was it stayed in that tight range. So this is again not a good sign. This probably means that once Nifty sort of breaks this level, it'll just continue its journey lower. So just to give levels to everyone, so my expectation is for Nifty to not go above 11,600, not go above 11,600, and I would initiate a short position once I see Nifty break 11,400. Number one. Number two, I will add on to my short positions once it breaks 11,360. So I'm watching out 2 levels particularly to the downside. One is 11,400 and one is 11,360. So my strategy would be to write at the money calls. For this, whenever there is a breakout, you see a fantastic move and the IVs are slightly higher than normal. So I do expect to catch a lot of theta decay. So that is going to be my strategy and trade idea for Nifty. Okay, now let's talk about Bank Nifty. So unlike Nifty, Bank Nifty continues to be bearish. It sold off and now it's staying back. It sold off and it's staying back. Unlike Nifty, Nifty moved higher after selling off. Bank Nifty is not doing that. Also, I forgot to mention that Nifty sort of moved higher on the back of Reliance Industries. We saw Reliance Industries gain 7 to 8% after that. It had this fantastic breakout from 2200. Bank Nifty doesn't get the advantage of having Reliance. Bank Nifty does not have Reliance. So Bank Nifty has stayed lower. We're seeing Bank Nifty stay after a sell-off. It sort of stayed in a tight range. This only means that there is a good possibility again of a continuation. So again, my expectation for Bank Nifty would be to continue lower. I'm going to have my stops at around 22,700, 800. I'm not looking to take a trade in Bank Nifty particularly. I might just write some calls about 23,000 and I will exit the calls once Bank Nifty breaks this 22,700, 22,800 region. My main focus is going to be Nifty because I think there is probably a larger move coming in Nifty. So, let's see what happens this week. So guys, that was it for the trade outlook. If you guys have reached so far, please make sure you subscribe and leave some comments below. I would like to know what you guys think and also what kind of content do you want me to cover. I am, we have a lot of webinars, free webinars that we have. We're going to be uploading a lot of that content on our channel very, very soon. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. And like I said, I would love to hear from you. So that was it, guys. I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.